Welcome to Goes on Panzer Senshado community, and to our new series in which we shall be reviewing the most recent replays of our tournament matches. Today, we shall be showcasing Pravda versus Jatkosota, which is a match in round 2 of our tournament. We shall be focusing on the perspectives of both teams as the match progresses. I will be joined by my co-host, Nonner.
Hello, that's me.
Right, so to start this off with, we are going to have a quick look at the lineups involved. We're going to
Yes, we
start with Pravda. So, what was the standout vehicle for Pravda, or the vehicles?
Right. So, their capital vehicle, their strongest vehicle, is the IS-1. Let's see. Well, the IS-1's got an 85. It's got an incredible front armor profile and a side profile, incredible side profile as well. It's immune to a lot of the lower velocity guns that other teams might field, like Soviet 76s or American 75s. Just a really good all-around tank, decent reload.
Yeah.
Any comments?
Theoretically, the IS-1 should be resistant to most of what Jatkosota can bring to the table. However, as we shall see, as a little spoiler, the IS-1 does not respond too well to being shot at. Next on the list, we're going to have a look at the KV-1 ZIS-5. So,
ZIS-5.
To go for the KV-1 ZIS-5, what benefits does this tank bring over the other KV-1 variants that Pravda could have brought?
Well, let's see. All right. Well, what are the variants? We got the KV-1 L11 with the L11 gun, significantly less armor. What other ones are there, Riku?
They also get the KV-1. Did they get the KV-1E?
I believe they do. Yes.
They do get the KV-1E. So, KV-1E has a much stronger armor profile, but why is the ZIS-5 still preferable?
Well, the ZIS-5 is more preferable because it's got that longer ZIS-5 cannon, as per the name would suggest. While the KV-1E has the F-32. The ZIS-5 and the F-32 are similar performance, but the ZIS-5 has just a little bit more pen, and it has much better velocity.
Okay, so I think we've kind of gotten to the bottom of this. Moving on to the next sort of level of Pravda's vehicles, the T-34 1942. Was this a wise choice for them to bring?
Yeah, legendary medium tank. Everyone knows what the T-34 is. 76 is the 1942 to be specific. So the options were here the 1942 or the 1941. The choice was made to pick the 1942 instead of 1941 because that fantastic turret. That turret is. Well, you can continue for me, Riku.
Okay, so the main advantage here was that the turret was slightly stronger against the weapons that Jatkosota is going to be fielding. You know, they are... Yes. We'll get to their lineup in a minute, but they have a lot of German guns and a lot of Russian guns. Those are going to struggle to really get through and crack the nut that is the 1942's turret.
Right. The volumetric on that turret deals with the German 75s much easier than the relatively more simple turret that the 1941 has, which is just a curved. But yeah.
So I think we've quite handily reached that. Moving on to their final vehicles, and those are BT7s and BT5s. What purpose do you think these tanks played in their lineup? Why were they chosen?
Right, just scouts, really. Just really good scouts. They're fast. They've got a very capable gun, as we'll see in this match, that deals with, frankly, a lot of vehicles that Yatko has. Since they have mainly German vehicles, which have very weak side profiles, and front profiles occasionally as well. Yeah, just very good light tanks.
Cool. So I think we've delved into we've delved into Pravda's lineup. We're now going to have a look at Yatko's.
All right. So we're going to be talking about the Yatko lineups now. Yatko's team really focused on German and Soviet captured stuff, right? So the first vehicle they have, the KV-1 M1942. Now, Ruku, we know this KV-1 to be very good, right? What? So what do you think about it?
It's quite the immense vehicle. It prioritizes its armor, especially well the cast turret of the KV-1 1942
Cast turret is the main
is
difference. Yep.
yeah, it's the number one difference, and it really shows. It takes an already strong heavy tank, makes it even more impervious to those sort of mid range guns that don't quite
Low
have
velocity. Yep.
the low velocity, the even the slightly longer stuff like the German 75s, they still struggle to get through this new turret.
Especially when angled. Yeah, it is basically invincible to low velocity stuff when even when flat. And when angled, it'll give the long-barreled stuff some issues. Moving on, the next tank is the Stug. That's a vehicle we know pretty
Ooh,
well, huh?
Stug. I
Yeah,
think
that's
when you think of Finland, you think of the Stug, and
yeah,
Yatko
the Sturmy.
Yatko really emphasized that importance, especially in this match, as we will see. The Stug offers them such a powerful tank wrapped up in a chassis,
Very
uh,
neat bundle.
in a very neat yes. It's incredibly good at those at dishing out that damage at a long range and able to take those hits in return.
Yeah, its armor profile is really good and it's extremely low down to the ground, so you can make they're called flat panzers for a reason, right? They're super low, and their armor is incredible, and the gun as well, fantastic.
Absolutely,
Uh,
couldn't agree more.
yep, Panzer IV. Now that's a classic medium tank.
Yeah,
Specifically, the one they have is the Panzer IV-J, right? So yeah, I mean it's a classic tank. It's got the long barrel. We all love the long barrel. But the armor is a little bit lacking, but it's still just a great overall medium tank.
yeah, I concur with this. It's such it is a really iconic vehicle, and but as stated, its armor profile really lets it down, and
Especially against
no,
the
especially against Russian weapons.
yeah,
We won't,
which deal with
we
curves,
shall yeah,
curve plates. Yep.
and
T-34s,
now
right?
T-34s. There's not much more to say about them than we've already stated with Pravda. However, there is one difference. They've brought a 1941.
They
So,
did.
what is your thoughts on that? Like,
But it's well, it's a little worse. It definitely makes shooting it easier for Soviet guns since it has that very pronounced curved weak spot on that turret front that anyone can pen through. Even the BTs, right? It makes it very easy to disable or kill.
cool. I think we won't linger too much because
Yeah,
there's a really important vehicle to Yatko coming up, and that is the
yep. We have it.
BT-42.
Yep, the BT-42.
It is
That
it's
is
a thing.
the that is the Yatko tank, as shown in the show, and uh, Yatko likes to bring it each time. It is well, I mean, its performance isn't the best, but it's fast. It's got a gun that is able to overpressure a lot of stuff, although against Pravda's vehicles might not be the best at overpressuring, unfortunately.
Yeah, that seems to have
But
been the one of the issues that the 42 runs into is just killing those Soviet vehicles that are not
heavily armored.
they are not meant to be taken down by such tank.
And
Um,
finally, the BTs. Not much to say about those. Same fast recon, great vehicles, good gun.
mm.
Yeah.
And I think we'll cap off there. That's Yatko's lineup. We're now going to move into a review of who are the people behind these tanks. Back to Pravda, we are going to be looking at the temporary CO for this match was myself, and the temporary EXO for this match was Nonner. As we
Lows.
are in quite a unique position here of playing in this match, we can talk about our plan in a lot more depth. So I'll hand it over to you now.
Right. So we had our plan in three parts mainly. we would send our main force, which consists of basically all of our armor, KV-1, T-34s, and the IS-1, as well as one BT just for scouting purposes. And then on either flank, south and north far, we would send BTs just to scout out the area. Here we go.
Yeah, sorry. That was more or less the idea, yeah. We realised that with our tanks, if we tried to fight at range, it wouldn't go well. You know, we've only got one large gun, that being the 85, that is consistently good at range. The rest of our 76s are a little bit more...
Low velocity,
meh.
yeah.
Yeah. As such, city fighting was the name of the game for us.
Yep, CQC.
CQC.
We intended to fight them in the city, and the rest of the BTs were just to scout and find out where the rest of them were if they weren't in the city.
It was a very simple plan, and I think it went fairly as we intended.
Fairly well. Right. As for Yatko, they had Dreki as their commander, and their sub-commander, their XO, was Corbini. As for their plan, Ruku.
Okay. As far as we can gather, and from what the experience was, is that they sent 3 of their tanks northward. These were the Panzer 4J, the BT-7, and the Stug. Not the Stug. No, it was... What was he in?
Another BT-7, I believe.
It was a BT-42, because they've got 2 of them.
Ah, yes, yeah,
right.
Yep.
They were... The intention of this force was they would take the north from any Russian forces, and then from this position, they could provide fire support and overwatch to the south. Now, the south is where their main force was.
Yeah, their main force consisting of KV-1, both T-34s, and a Stug. So their purpose over there was to secure that ridgeline, look into the city, secure that city, and eventually push up and around and get to that cap.
And from what... this plan, I think, is a really good one on paper, but a few unfortunate things take place, and we'll get into that. I think... I
do think it might have been one of their... I think it was a good plan, but I feel like the T-34s might not have been well placed. Like, the long guns did as they intended. Mostly, like, they're supposed to be at longer ranges, right? So they could shoot at farther distances. But the T-34s and the KV aren't very useful at that distance, so
no,
I'm not sure.
And they've done pretty much the opposite of what Pravda has, and they've put their 76s at long range, whereas Pravda's planned to put all their 76s short range. And this dichotomy is essentially what dictates this match.
Yep.
I think
we'll see how that goes.
We shall see how that goes. For now, we're going to end with this overview, and we'll finally get into how this match played out. So,
all right.
Action first commences with Pravda's northern scouts running into Yatko's north force. This seems like it should be a very quick and decisive engagement.
Yep, it's 3 tanks versus 2. You got a Panzer 4, like the medium of their team, versatile, BT-42, which can easily take out any of the BTs, and the BT-7, which could also do the same. Here they are on a head-on engagement.
And it seems, from what we can sort of garner, the Pravda's BT-5 has heard Yatko's BT-7. However, it does not appear that Yatko's BT-7 has heard Pravda's tank. He is looking far to the wrong direction. From this, Pravda has the upper hand. They know the tanks are here. As shown, despite the slightly dodgy replay, Pravda scores first blood against Yatko's Panzer IV. This
Right off the bat.
decisively turned this engagement in Yatko's favor. No, Pravda's favor. Next.
An incredible hit on the Panzer IV.
Yeah,
Instantly
one shot
wrecked.
to take out a Panzer IV. He could not have got any luckier.
And,
As we've
especially
seen, the 42 has also fallen. Not quite sure why he decided charging the same road that the Panzer IV exploded on was the best idea, but moving on.
the BT-7 pushing around.
And once more, I apologise for the dreadful guiding replays, but it appears that the RBMX, with post-match, he has quite the issue with his setup. As such, it is said his visibility is basically nothing. That may explain why he has just driven past Pravda's BT-5.
With that, the northern area is entirely clear of Yatko presence, basically allowing free reign for Pravda for that entire area and crippling Yatko for the rest of the game.
This was... I don't put out sort of decisive factors often. However, knocking out 3 of Yatko's tanks with the loss of none is a heavy, heavy blow to the Finnish team, and one that they don't really recover from in the north. They don't think about it again.
Right, yeah, it's just an incredible work from Isilex, who is Testosterone X in this replay. He decisively killed 3 of Yatko's one of Yatko's 3 limited tanks, and 2 of their shittier ones, their scouts.
As well as, and what may be the most important factor, is they knocked out Yatko's commander Dreki. Dreki was in the Panzer IV. Yatko has just had its head cut off. It's now up to Corbini, their second in command, to rein it in. As we spectate towards the main forces of either side, we can see that Pravdas have followed their plan to the T. Their main force is bottled up in the city, daring Yatko to enter.
They're prepared. Pravda's sitting in the city. They're ready to fight in any kind of CQC engagement. They're just waiting for any news from other BTs. Yeah.
And if we then move on to the flip side, we have got Yatko's very spread out line along the south. This is an excellent line for sort of scurrying out scouts. However, it leaves their main force particularly stretched thin. This will eventually be remedied, but
it's a good line to fight if Pravda had sent their stuff south, but they haven't. So not much going on there. They're just looking into empty space.
And with this state of affairs solidifying, with both sides claiming control of their hemispheres respectively, we shall now skip ahead a little bit until the next bit of action commences. Yatko starts off this battle with moving a majority of their force into the southern plains, and presumably in an attempt to sweep out any Russian forces they expect to be there. As we can see, the Pravda's BT-5 has been spotted by the BT-42, and as fortune would turn out, this KV-1, who is perfectly reasonable, capable of knocking out that BT-5, has unfortunately disconnected.
It's an incredible loss for Yatko. That KV-1 is one of their best vehicles, if not their best.
He drives steadily past the BT-5. This, however, will not save this fast tank. Dmitry in the BT is completely surrounded in a position that is untenable. He will be picked apart in short order.
While the Stug and the BT push him.
It is a much closer fight than we were aware, though. He does try and give the Stug a run for its money, however,
but ultimately he's knocked out.
No. And as we watch this KV-1 coaxed off into the distance, on
there is another BT.
there is a BT here who is perhaps not so confident in knocking out a KV-1, and I would be inclined to agree. I'm not sure that 45 can reliably pen the KV-1, and as such, the already disconnected KV-1 just keeps to get going. The BT, on the other hand, is just
remains in his position,
scouting, doing an excellent job of it. He is watching the KV-1, probably wondering why a heavy tank has just driven past him.
But he does scout the Stugs and the T-34s that are now pushing up to the ridge.
The intel gathered from these two not so lucky BTs is vital to Pravda. Despite the loss of one of them, and to cut a long story short, the loss of the second one very shortly, they have identified exactly where Yatko's main force is, and Yatko has not had such a pleasure. They don't know where Pravda's main force is. As we can see, if we go to the Stug, for example, they're staring into the city. They're probably aware that Russian tanks perform better in CQC. However, Yatko don't make a confirmed visual.
They don't make any
on Pravda tanks.
Neither do they make a decisive push. They mainly just sit there and hold the ridge. So for Pravda, this is incredible because we know where all three of those big tanks are. And meanwhile, while the top side is being ripped apart, we know that that's their entire team. That's all they have.
This heavily decides the course of action for this battle. We won't stay here and look at the poor BT get massacred. However, just that is how the South has unfolded. An incredibly unfortunate circumstance for Yatko. If that KV-1 hadn't disconnected, the future...
It may have turned the battle.
It may have turned the tide. It really would have.
Especially with how the end of it turned out, how close it was. I'm sure a KV would have been an incredible tool for Yatko, especially against fighting our rather weak 76s against it.
Yeah, it's unfortunate, but that is the course. That is... He did have a chance to rejoin. There is a 2-minute timer built into War Thunder. You can rejoin a match. However, it appears that his connection issues were just too much. And as we've stated, that really dictates how this match goes. We will watch as this plucky BT charges headlong into a T-34 and a BT-42. He is perhaps... We can't really get into the head of what Kirov was doing. Perhaps wanting to knock out the BT-42 he had spotted. However, that is the result of that heroic charge.
He unfortunately does die, but not without having served his purpose.
That he has. And it seems that T-34 was not too happy anyway, and taking a shot at him again. That wraps up the South.
Just in case. That was the South, and it is now purely a battle of main force versus main force. Which we will see next. Right. Yeah, so after the early victories, the 3 kills from Islex, Pravda, Commander Ruku, orders those 2 BTs to flank around to somewhat join them near the city, where they will make a combined push to meet the southern flank, which the other BT scouts have notified their team of. Yes, this decision to attempt to flank Yatko's position with the remaining North scouts it's a decent idea, if I don't say so myself. Because at this point, Pravda is fairly certain there is nothing left in the north. Yatko simply doesn't have the tanks to have anything else left up there. And with the reports coming in from the southern scouts, we know, Pravda knows, that this is it. We have the advantage of the field. We can do our maneuvers. As such, here are the BTs getting on with that. However, Yatko is not idle. Yatko in this time, they have condensed... Consolidated, yep. Yes, thank you, their southern line, and they have all grouped up in an excellent show of strength. Yep. And they're going to be holding that ridge, making sure they use that range advantage that the Stug provides very readily. to keep Pravda away from that ridge and to inflict as much casualties as possible, with the T-34s providing support.
Because much like Pravda have realised there's nothing left in the north, Yatko has realised they've got nothing left in the north. Everything is now about the south. As such, if we look at their placement, the remaining BT-42 is looking out exactly where the Pravda's BTs will eventually appear. This disposition of forces is smart. They've realised they're in it for the long haul. They need to have every eye available. As such, they've spread out their tanks, but they've kept a strong centre with the T-34 ready to help the Stug at any moment. However, Pravda's northern scouts have not gone unnoticed. Yatko's excellent cordon of defence and spotting have noticed the BT's movements, and as such, Islex, the hero of the north, has fallen, unfortunately.
Has fallen, yes. To a firing line, actually, of
Yes.
BT-42s, Stugs, and T-34s.
Yes, it was quite unfortunate that he crested that hill at the wrong moment, at the wrong time to be spotted. However, that has put Yatko back on the offensive. They've scored a blow, their third of the game, and that has now prompted a Pravda response. If we look back in the city, we can see exactly what that response is going to be.
Yes, so now that the BT has reached its scouting position, the other BT that did not die in its push there, so now Pravda knows that they're all there, and so they're pushing to get to a better position to attack that Stug and T-34.
Now this is, as was organised, this is a hell of a push out of the city. Having the IS-1 up front offers Pravda an almost untouchable vanguard to lead this push. However, as we're going to see, this formation quickly disintegrates. Myself in the lead T-34 notices that from this position, we can see Yatko's forces on the hill. I tell our team to stop, take their shots, and eventually we'll move on again. This is a decision that will cost myself and several other tanks dearly. As we can see, Pravda have taken out one of Yatko's T-34s. However, in response, Yatko now knows what the main force is and starts dealing out vicious damage. The T-34.
Yep. The Stug starts doing incredible damage against us. At long range, the Stug is going to be much better than any gun with a 76 Soviet. So,
and it is
this is where
it is putting that low profile and that excellent gun to good use. It is just dishing out damage that none of Pravda's tanks can dare counter.
So, in this situation, the 85 would be an incredible tool to deal with that Stug frontally, but unfortunately he falls a little bit short.
Yes, as we can see, this Stug is just picking off Pravda's tanks one by one. It is absolutely vital that Pravda is reinforced with its main tank. However, due to some issues, the IS-1 is not able to engage the Stug, and as such, Pravda has lost 2 tanks they could not afford to lose.
Yeah, a force of 5 has been cut down to 3, with one of its commanders, in fact, dying. The main commander, Ruku, has fallen, and it is up to me, the sub-commander, to lead the rest of this match.
Much like Yatko's predicament from earlier, it is now the sub-commanders taking over.
XO v XO.
XO v XO, a battle of titans. And this makeshift force from Pravda has been halted in its tracks. From what was meant to be a heavy push out of the city has been bled into a stalemate. The IS-1 has finally pushed up to try and provide some support against the enemy Stug. However, this is a mistake that's going to cost him very dearly in the near moments.
Yes, the IS-1, against the orders of his commander, remains in position. And unfortunately, continues to engage the Stug without pushing up to regroup. Eventually, this does cost him his life, as shown here.
That was once again,
devastating blow.
Yeah, I don't tend to do turning points. That was the turning point for Pravda. They were on top of the world mere moments ago, and now it is a much more even battle. The forces have been dwindled to a very, very balanced T-34 Stug, T-34 KV-1 with BT in reserve.
So now it's just, so at this point, the Pravda pushes up, because noticing that its only options are to just continue pushing, because all they got left is low velocity guns that they need close quarters combat for.
And as we can see, with a rather unfortunate display of questionable driving from this T-34, he is consistently getting in the Stug's way. This has not only just cost that T-34 dearly, it has now cost the Stug its range advantage. That mistake has allowed Pravda to get into cover and to slowly advance up the hill. At this time, if I may pass it on to you, trouble is afoot.
Yes. So what happened on my end? So one of the T-34 that I had left, one out of the remaining 2 allies that I had, is AFK. Unfortunately, his dinner had arrived, and well, he can't stick on the computer anymore. So he has to leave his computer for now, and it's just me and the BT. At this point, I tell the BT to flank the Stug while I push up.
An unfortunate missed shot from the Stug has now allowed the BT to get behind. This is an unwinnable situation for a casemate tank destroyer. He is surrounded, he is now getting picked off.
The Stug's driver gunner's knocked out from me. The BT is flanking it, and the Stug reverses, tries to get the BT, and unfortunately is knocked out, and that is game.
That is the end of this match, and I'd like to just say that it was an incredibly daring last stand from Corbini in his Stug. From minutes ago having 1 kill, he has ended up with an ace, our 4th, 5th ace of this season, and has utterly given Pravda a bloody nose for its victory.
Overall, just an incredible close game.
That was Pravda versus Yatko. We're now going to get into some of our just post-match comments, some of the things we noticed.
So, well, while the kill feed's shown on the
you can
on the screen here,
observe
why don't
this illustrious kill feed, and
that's incredible.
There was a lot happened in this match. That
incredible match, in my opinion.
There's a lot to talk about.
Yeah, one of the better matches in this most recent season.
Yeah, I would like to kick this off with the thing I noticed the most was Yatko's disposition of forces. So whereas Pravda sort of kept themselves very contained, other than the scouts obviously, Yatko essentially split themselves in half, and that's a tactic. I don't know, what are your thoughts on that?
They split themselves in half in a way that was, well, they can't help each other, right?
Exactly,
they split themselves in half over a massive distance. I guess their main force was the Stug, the KV-1, the T-34s, right? The main force is all consolidated. But that one Panzer IV out there, even if it did get to its own spot, I'm not sure how that would have necessarily helped.
And having the benefit of hindsight, if let's say the North Force had won against Pravda's BTs, what exactly were they going to do? We can talk about how this match played out, and we know exactly where Pravda was. What were they going to do? They were not going to enter the city with 3 tanks.
Yeah, definitely not.
Maybe in the final push, they could have come up from the north and
perhaps
struck Pravda in the side. But once again, it was an incredibly large distance.
The distance is really the killer here. There's not much you could do to help each other quickly, especially with only 1 tank, right? It's just 1 long barrel tank.
Yeah.
Doubly so, it's your commander, right? Once you lose that, there's a lot less cohesion.
And having him split off from the main force is it gives you an element of flexibility, because I'd say a main force is a lot easier to keep together than a secondary splinter force. So having the commander with that splinter force is a good idea. However,
It is a good idea.
it cost them this time. They lost their first casualty was their commander.
I do think it was just really unfortunate for them, though. That was just really
That
unlucky.
is true.
I think uh, without that incredible miracle that Islex pulled off by getting all three without any casualties, I think they would have. He would have done well commanding there
Mm.
by himself.
Yeah,
Definitely much
and
better.
from for sort of what if the original idea, from what I can remember, was that a T50 would have been with that cohort. So that is more than a match for a BT and is hard for a BT to kill.
Definitely,
If that
definitely.
T50 had have been there, who knows what could have happened.
Right. Yeah, I think the BT would have definitely lost.
Mm. I
Although the
think
Panzer IV, it seems like his fate was sealed.
yeah. We'll move on now. So, what if I had to ask you, what do you think? Well, just comments.
Well, moving on, right? We got well, okay. We got the scouts on the south flank, right? The Pravda scouts, they died. The consolidation of force on the on Yatko's side on that ridge was incredible. I do think that was that's a great play, keeping that ridge really secure, and doing well, sniping across the ridge, making sure that's safe. Uh, I mean, yeah, it's a
Hmm.
good play on their side, their end.
Yeah, I think that's. I agree with that. It was the best place they could have put their tanks for this match.
Especially at a disadvantage that they were
Yeah,
with two knocked out tanks, one of them being disconnected, which is still just an
that
incredible
was yeah.
loss to them.
We can't get over that. Was that
Yeah,
once again? I think that was probably the most decisive factor. There if that KV1 had have been on that hill, what what else could have happened? We would have seen a KV1 versus KV1 fight, and as interesting as that is, I don't place Pravda's chances very high, especially with the Stug still in action.
definitely. As Stogum KV1 would be a sword and shield,
Exactly.
proverbially a sword and shield.
Exactly.
If the KV1 can take hits while the Stug dishes out damage,
Mm,
it's definitely lethal.
that is, yeah. I.
Moving forward,
Yeah, yeah.
we're gonna be the next most interesting thing that happened was the engagement where the Stug got a bunch of kills, like 5. Uh,
Yes.
so,
Yes.
yeah,
That. Once again, I think I mentioned this earlier, but the fifth ace of this season, and that was an incredible show of gunneryship. You know, especially knocking out the IS-1 through the turret, because
great shot.
he didn't hit the hull, he didn't hit the cupola, he went straight through the turret. That is a difficult shot to hit. If the IS-1 was even
Range,
slightly angled its turret, that was not going to happen. So
just a fantastic shot.
excellent.
Uh,
The shot that took out me, I was just about exposed. My turret was maybe a couple of inches above the snow, and he managed to
yeah,
hit
just an
that
incredible
shot,
breach shot.
knock out my breach immediately.
But this is to say though that Pravda did heavily misplay on that end. It's a lot of unfortunate things happened. They went into more or less the open against a sniping force that was just like incredible pinpoint accuracy. Once they lost the commander and a BT, they were just down to 3 tanks, and the IS-1 unfortunately not listening to and not pushing up with the main force got itself knocked out too,
Mm.
which was
It was.
really really
It's
unfortunate.
really. It's one of those mistakes we don't see often. Usually, when a tank racks up a bunch of kills, it's usually because the enemies are coming one at a time or two at a time, and they're just feeding themselves into this meat grinder. This was the opposite. This was a unified force moving as a cohort, other than the IS-1 that we've talked about, and
Yeah,
having the ability to just knock out tank after tank in a formation is that's quite something unique. We don't see that here
yeah.
often.
Yeah, no, he was just in an incredible position that none of us could really see or hit, right? Like we lost the T-34 basically instantly, and then that was like one of 3 guns that could maybe pen him, right?
Yeah.
And then we're down to oh well, sorry, one of 4, I guess, and then we're down to the 276s and 185. 85 is supposed to be incredible at it, but unfortunately he never got a visual on it either.
No, he and that sort of separation of you, and especially picking off those high value targets. He couldn't see the IS-1 first, so he took out a T-34. He saw the BT, but didn't try and focus it. He was still targeting those tanks that could hurt him. And it wasn't until later, when those tanks disappeared, he finally took out the BT.
And then the IS.
Yeah, and this prioritization of targets is what you are looking for. It's what we strive to see here.
Yeah. Plus Corbini's incredible use of binoculars to see over that
Yes,
hill
and we can't quite show it because the replay doesn't show it at the best. But all of those shots taken were in binoculars firing over the ridgeline. He was not exposed. Nobody on Pravda could see the Stug there, and he was firing shots across the ridge in binos. And that takes
at a range
a
like
certain level of skill that not many possess.
Yeah, at a range of like 600, definitely had the advantage there. Yeah, I mean, after that, yeah, I mean, there's after that the push on the Stug. Well, I think that was pretty cool too. There was only 2 players active at that moment. The last one was AFK, and the BT5 flanking around while the KV1 pushed forward.
Unfortunate timing to go AFK.
Yeah, definitely.
That's not the moment I would have chosen. But that coordination between the KV1 and the BT5 was just
crucial. Dealing with the Stug.
That was trying to assault the Stug uphill was already a challenge, and forcing him to divert his attention, critical.
Yeah, definitely. As a casemate tank, you can't be having multiple things on your side. If he had taken that BT off right on that first hit, which he missed, unfortunately, I think it definitely would have been a much harder shot for the KV.
I can agree with that one.
Yeah.
That's kind of the sort of how this battle went. It was very much a back and forth,
Yeah, definitely a push and pull.
It was a pendulum swinging from an early Pravda victory to a complete sideswipe with many of their good tanks being taken out, and then swinging back in their favor for the last moment. It was it gets the heart pumping. It really does.
Great match.
It was a great match. I don't think there's much more to comment on. I haven't got anything left in mind. So I think we will wrap it up here. Thank you very much, Nonner.
Thank you.
And I will say to everyone watching, thank you so much for watching. If you are interested in playing this oh so brilliant tournament, there will be a link in the description to join the server.
Yep.
I hope to see you all there.
Yep. Stay tuned for the following episodes for other tournament matches.